everyone, I'm Mindy Eggen, and I'm excited to share with you the February 2024 release for Concordia 9th. I am introducing to you the Altogether Alphabet Die Set. Now these are actually two die sets. You have a capital letter and a lowercase letter die set. These are on one plate, so the capital letters are on one plate and the lowercase is on one plate, versus having each letter individually. So you can just run this through your die cut machine with a sheet of cardstock and get all of these letters. One of the first things I noticed when I die cut out these letters is you're getting multiples of some of the most popular letters, like the A, the E, the O, R's and S's. It seems like those are always the letters you need more of. So instead of die cutting it multiple times, you can run this through with one pass and you're going to get multiples right away of those popular letters. Same thing with the lowercase set. You're getting some of those popular letters multiple times. So there'll be two A's, two E's. There's also a heart and a star you can add to your card fronts. And then numbers if you want to do a year or maybe birthdays and anniversaries. Now again, here, press and seal is going to be your best friend. So I found that I could die cut out the capital letters from a full piece or full A2 size card piece, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. But the lowercase letters, you will need a little bit bigger of a piece to die cut it from. And then I stuck everything onto some press and seal. So I flipped my plate over because most of the letters stayed in my plate when I die cut it. I flipped it over and just applied that press and seal to the back. So it's holding all of my letters in place. I can keep this, so if I want to use some of the other letters that I didn't use, I'll have those handy. Now, another thing I wanted to point out is don't throw away those negative pieces. If you are into mixed media or you like stenciling, use these negative pieces to do mixed media projects or creating your own stencil. Maybe you have some sprays or some paste that you can use for it. This one is out of gold glitter cardstock, and I just did not have the heart to throw it away. Don't forget your pattern paper. So this is the brand new 2024 Color Collection paper pad from Concordia 9th. You are getting 8 1/2 by 11 sheets. There's 18 sheets in this pack. There's one of each of the 3 patterns in the 6 brand new colors. And these are some really great staple patterns to have. There's some gingham, there's polka dots, there's diagonal stripes. So these are just really good for using on backgrounds, or maybe you want to do shaker cards. You could use those panels for shaker cards. Die cut out your letters, your shapes, so many things with these patterns that you can do. For this card, I used some of the pattern paper as my background on my A2 size card front, but I also die cut out the letters from the pattern paper, and I did that from the polka dots. On this particular card, I have that white background. That is from the Primrose Garden. I'm going to bring in my actual photograph here so you can see the piercing look on that. And then I did the word hugs at the top with the pattern paper. I love using my alphabet dies to customize my messages so I can trim out different letters in different colors. This card, I used the Contempo Turnabout stamp set in the background, and then I did Yay in some brand new colors that have been released. You can also do your own shadow layers. So for this one, I die cut it out of white cardstock and black cardstock, and then I slightly offset it to give it a shadow and make it pop off of the front of the card a little bit more. Here I mixed and matched the capital letters with the lowercase letters and put those letters inside of the balloons, which is from the Bunch of Balloons stencil. Once you have an alphabet die in your stash, you'll wonder how you lived without it. And that's a closer look at the Altogether Alphabet dies. I'm introducing the Bunch of Balloons stamp, dies, and stencil set. If you have any birthdays coming up, this is going to be a great bundle to have in your stash. You can use each of these individually or all together, which they work perfectly all together. So we have the sentiment set or the stamp set. The stencil set, you actually are getting quite a few stencils in this pack, and there's going to be 3 different designs that you'll be able to create. And then the coordinating dies, which have our coordinating dies for the sentiments, and then also some little extra balloons that you can add to your card projects. Now, first we'll take a look at the stamp set. So we have a lot of really fun sentiments on here. We have high five in that bold style font. It's your birthday, hooray, cheers to you, let's celebrate, and yay. There's also some additional images on here like little confetti bits, a star, and then there's 2 different size balloons, a string for your balloon, and a bow. Now, what I really love about this is there are coordinating dies for those larger sentiments, so you can die cut those out and add to your cards. And then we also have a variety of balloons. You have a large, medium, and then 3 small balloons that you can die cut out and add if you don't want to have any stamped lines or you don't want a stencil and you just want to use up that really pretty cardstock that Concord and Ninth has. So here on the die set, you can see there is a small grouping of stars. So I die cut those out of gold glitter cardstock. And then there's an individual star that's a little bigger that I was able to die cut out the actual stamped star. For the stencil pack, you're getting 3 different designs in the stencil pack. Now this particular one, this first one, is going to create this nice kind of wreath of balloons. There are some registration marks that will help you line up your cardstock. Doesn't matter which one you do first, they're going to slightly overlap each other and create that really fun wreath. So I did ink blend this panel up, and of course I used rainbow colors because balloons just look amazing in rainbow colors, and I love how they overlap because they kind of give you that translucent look. The second design is kind of all on its own. It has these 2 balloons, so you can layer the stripe over the solid image of the balloon. I apologize, I forgot to ink blend that one up. But then we have these letters on here that you can ink blend onto your card front and create the ink blended sentiment. And I'll show you how to do that. The third design in the pack is going to give you an entire card front of balloons. This one, it doesn't matter which order you do them in, but they do overlap slightly, which again, I think is super fun, and it's going to create just this really fun festive design. And it doesn't necessarily have to be birthday. Maybe you have graduation coming up or retirement or anniversary. This is a really good, any of the balloons are really good throughout multiple occasions. Here I'm going to show you how to do the hooray. So I have a piece of white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 and by 5 1/2 that I placed in my Misty stamping tool on top of a sticky mat. Now I apologize, I'm still kind of tweaking my lighting since I moved my craft space, so my stencil kind of gets a little overexposed. Once I ink blend the letters on, you'll be able to see it better. But I'm taking the H on the stencil and I moved it to the far left-hand side. I'm taking Post-it tape, or you can use Post-it notes, and I'm masking off some areas around it so I don't get any ink where I don't want it. Now, I started out with watermelon ink. I absolutely love this brand new color. It's such a beautiful, vibrant color, and I'm going to ink blend that on with a mini ink blending brush. I'll peel up the stencil, so there is my H, and then I'm going to move on to the letter O. Now, there's actually 2 O's on here. So you can go through and create this whole sentiment without having to clean your stencil right away. You don't have to have it overlap, but you can if you want. It is kind of designed that way, and I think it's a really fun kind of playful touch to the design. Now again, I'm masking off the areas so I don't get any ink on the rest of my cardstock, and I'm going to ink blend this one in rainbow order. I am using Creamsicle. Now, typically, if I'm going to be masking off areas with my Post-it tape, I only reuse it about twice, because if I am putting Post-it tape on top of the stencil to mask off other areas, a lot of times my Post-it tape is picking up ink. And then if I use it again, it's transferring the ink onto my card front. So you just want to be careful of that, so that if you want to use this entire card front as your card, you don't want to risk getting any ink on there. That second O that I did was ink blended with a buttercup ink. And then I shifted this down, so I'm using the R, and I moved over to right under the H. I actually should have shifted this over a little bit further because I didn't have enough room for the exclamation point, so just be mindful of that. Now this one I am ink blending with Sprout, but I think I have a little bit of a Grasshopper on my blending brush. It's still a beautiful green that's going to help complete my rainbow. Again, I shifted my stencil. I'm using the A, and I'm going to ink blend that with Aqua Sky. Again, it's slightly overlapping. And then I have my Y. Now this one I didn't have overlap. I tucked it in pretty close to the letter, but I didn't have it overlap too much. And for my last color of the rainbow, I am using Fig. Now when I'm done ink blending, I will take my stencil and I'm going to clean it with some rubbing alcohol and a rag, and the ink is going to wipe right off. I do take like a stamp chamois or a wet towel and I wipe down my sticky mat once my cardstock is removed, which I just kind of bend that in half and the cardstock pops right off. And this card front is pretty much ready to go. If you like clean and simple one-layer cards, you could maybe just stamp an extra sentiment there and send it off in the mail. So this is a card I created using that balloon stencil that covers the entire panel, and I used some of the brand new colors. I also added in the outline to the balloons. Now, I didn't mean to line it up so perfect. It seems like when I want to mess up or I want to offset it, I can't seem to do that. They lined up pretty perfect. But here on this other card that I did, you can give it a little offset to show some of the white of the cardstock, and that adds a very whimsical and playful look to your balloons. For both of the cards that I created, I used the Altogether alphabet, both the uppercase and lowercase. I think it's also really fun to have that mix of upper and lowercase on the card front, which those letters fit perfectly inside the balloons. And that's a closer look at a bunch of balloons, stamp, die, and stencil set. Hi everyone and welcome. This is the introduction to the Contempo Turnabout stamp set. This has a really unique pattern to it that is great for using in your backgrounds, whether you want to stamp it once, twice, 3 times, or all 4 times. And of course, looks good whether you stamp it all in one color or in 4 different colors. With each of the turnabouts, you get this placement guide that helps you line this up perfectly on your turnabout jig for perfect placement. I went ahead and lined mine up already. There is an introduction video if you want to learn how to line up your turnabout stamps with your turnabout jig. So I have my jig placed in my MISTI stamping tool, and I am using a piece of white cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I placed it within those portrait guidelines, and I'm going to ink up my turnabout stamp with the Grasshopper ink. Up in the top right hand corner of my turnabout jig, it is at number 1, so I'm going to start with that. Once I ink this up, I'm going to stamp it down. Now my turnabout is fairly well conditioned because I've used it quite a few times at this point, but if it is a brand new stamp, you want to either rub your hand over it or ink it up with a Versamark ink, especially since this is a lot of solid area to the stamp. So I turned my jig so it is at the number 2 up in that right hand corner, and I'm going to ink up my stamp again. I am going to be doing a background all in Grasshopper ink, but if you wanted to switch up your colors, you would want to clean off your stamp set before you ink it up again with a second color. I'll turn my jig so I have number 3 up in that top right hand corner, ink this up once again with the Grasshopper ink and stamp that down. Now at any point I could stop and use that as a background. These type of designs look great stamped as 1, 2, or 3 times or 4 for a full panel. After I turn my jig to the number 4 up in the right hand corner and stamp down that Grasshopper ink once again, I can remove this. My background is complete. And to remove it from the jig, I just bend that in half and the cardstock pops right off. This would also have been really fun stamped in the Grasshopper ink on Grasshopper cardstock. Now this second panel I stamped only 3 times, and I used Grasshopper, Rainforest, and Eucalyptus ink. And then that last panel, I did Grasshopper, Watermelon, Nectar, and Aqua Sky. If you want something with more of a summer vibe, you can stamp Watermelon ink on Watermelon cardstock. There are also a lot of great sentiments tucked away on this turnabout. We have thanks, today is your day, hugs, hi, yay, hey good looking, you're the best, and big birthday vibes, plus a nice little solid heart. For the first card that I made, I used Wildberry, Eucalyptus, nectar, and watermelon ink to create my background. The sentiment is from the Primrose Garden. I used the banner die and then one of the sentiments off of the Primrose Garden that fit nicely on the banner. I think one of my favorite ways to use turnabouts is stamping it in pebble ink only 1 or 2 turns, and that's going to give me a little bit more interest to my background. For each of these cards, I did trim my stamped panel down and I added some gold splatters to it just for some fun. And then that sentiment there where I used the Altogether alphabet die and then a stamped sentiment underneath. That's a closer look at the Contempo Turnabout stamp set. Hello and welcome. Today I'm introducing to you the Empire Inlay Die. If you love bold geometric designs and the die cut inlay technique, you are absolutely going to love this die. It creates such amazing designs and there's so many possibilities to it. This is a panel that I die cut out of a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of Wildberry cardstock. So it cuts out all of those areas and it layers perfectly on the front of an A2 size panel. Now you can put it on white cardstock or any colored cardstock. You can also save all of the pieces and do the die cut inlay technique. Now my biggest tip for using this die is going to be press and seal. It is going to be your absolute best friend when using this die. This is all of the panels that I have die cut so far that I placed onto press and seal. So when I ran it through my die cut machine, most of the pieces stayed in the plate and I was able to put press and seal on the back to hold everything in place. So that way I can save all of these and there are so many cards that I can make with this. I even did the inlay technique with the white pieces of cardstock and the leftovers created the coolest designs. So I'm going to be saving all of these in my stash so I can use up the rest of these pieces. I'm going to show you a few of the card examples that I created and then I'm going to show you how I did it. So the first card here, I did the die cut inlay technique with colored cardstock just in some of the areas. You can fill in the entire thing with all the different colors, but I really liked having this kind of geometric design to it. A lot of these are brand new colors right now that are being released, except for Nectar and Aqua Sky I added in there. I finished it off with a sentiment off of the Just Sayings die. The next card I'm going to share is using the rest of the pieces. So for this one, I did the colorful design around the outside edge and then left the middle diamonds white. I also added a flower that came from the Primrose Garden set that's being released for February 2024. I added glitter cardstock to the center of the flower. And then the Just Because is heat embossed in white embossing powder on the Rainforest cardstock. And that was with using a small sentiment off of the Lots to Say stamp set. For my third card, I did an ink blended background. So I die cut out the panel with white cardstock, popped out all of those inlay pieces, and then I ink blended a piece of cardstock using Wildberry, watermelon, and creamsicle, which I'm pretty sure is my new favorite blend. It is absolutely dreamy. And for that one, I finished it off with a sentiment from the Everyday Expressions, and I die cut that out of the Wildberry cardstock with a white shadow layer. So now I'm going to show you how I did that die cut inlay technique. I have my panel here that I die cut from the Wildberry cardstock. This is going to measure 4 1/4 by 5.5. I'm probably doing this the hard way. There's probably easier ways to do this, but I took a fine tip bottle of glue and I added a dot of glue to the back of the panel and all around the edge. Then I'm going to layer this on top of white cardstock that is cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5. And I'm going to hold that down. There's going to be little bits of glue that might pop up, and I just wipe that away with my hand. Now, another thing that I probably should have done and would be a lot easier is if you plan on adding cardstock to each of those areas, you might want to add some double-sided adhesive sheets to your white cardstock first. That way, the entire cardstock panel will have the sticky to it. That really probably would have been the best thing to do right here instead of adding all of that liquid glue to the back. Did not think of it at the time, but I would suggest adding the double-sided adhesive sheets to your white cardstock. Then you don't have to mess with any of the liquid glue and all of the exposed areas are going to have the adhesive exposed, so you can just add your die cut pieces to it. So you can see here I brought in my panel that I have with, I believe this is the Stardust colored cardstock panel. It's probably not the greatest color that I should have chosen for it, but it shows you how I'm just picking that up with my tweezers and I'm inlaying that design onto the panel. So if I want to finish this card, I would probably grab some nice bright colors to help make this design pop a little bit more and make it so that the Stardust doesn't stick out so much, but you can see the concept of being able to inlay those strips onto the panel. I will definitely be picking up some double-sided adhesive sheets so that this goes a lot quicker next time, but if you don't have any on hand, the liquid glue method works as well. I do highly suggest getting some of that press and seal because it is going to make your life a lot easier and make this process so much more enjoyable, and you are going to love the designs that are created with this set. And that's a closer look at the Empire Inlay Die set. Hello and welcome. This is an introduction to the Everyday Sentiment die set. In this die set, you are getting 5 different sentiments. It is going to die cut out the actual sentiment, and then you also have the shadow layer for it. On the back of the packaging, it's going to give you examples, and these are the types of sentiments that you want to have handy in your stash because they can be used all year round. Now, I die cut mine out of some of the new cardstock. So we have Best Wishes out of Grasshopper, Hooray out of Eucalyptus, Happy Birthday out of Watermelon, You Are Amazing from Wildberry, and Thinking of You from Creamsicle. And then I just did a white backer for each of those. Now, I have recently moved my craft room, and when I did that, I was going through my stash of Concord & Ninth products, and there were some products that stood out to me that I wanted to include because they can be great with these sentiments. So I have 2 very similar cards. These are using the rainbow card front die and also the cloudy double card front die, which I thought those 2 paired together really well, and they were released at different times. So I die cut out my rainbow pieces out of a variety of cardstock. Here I'm going to angle it to try and show you that stitched cloudy pattern in the background. It is a very simple card to recreate. All I needed to do was add a sentiment, and that is where these everyday sentiments come in super handy. I can have a bunch of these sentiments die cut up, ready to go to add to a card front. These are like the perfect sentiment size where they don't take up an entire A2 size card front. They just kind of tuck nicely into their place, and they would also be really great to add to gift bags if you like to hand make gift bags or you have some dies that create little gift bags. And that was a closer look at the Everyday Sentiments die set. Hello and welcome. I am introducing to you the Primrose Garden stamp and die set. Now this bundle has a small stamp set with a bunch of sentiments to it, and then we have the die set that is going to be able to create a card front panel and then also be able to decorate it. Now you can use these all together like the packaging shows here on the back, or you can use these elements separately on your other card projects. So first, let's take a look at the sentiments included on the stamp set. We have thank you, thinking of you, congrats, hello, sending you so much love, miss you so, best of luck, happy birthday, and then there's a little heart on there that is absolutely adorable when it's so tiny like that. All of these sentiments are going to fit perfectly on this banner that I was just pointing to. It's a banner that you can die cut out of any colored cardstock and then stamp your sentiment on. Here's a look at the panel that you'll be able to die cut. So I used the outline die to die cut out the main panel piece out of Eucalyptus cardstock. And then there is the piercing plate that is separate. So you can add that over the top. It is going to kind of give you an outline of where everything goes, but it also makes a great background. If you want to have just some subtle interest to a background, that piercing plate is going to be perfect for it. Then we can start building up our scene. So if you want to use all of the pieces, we're going to start out with the large leaves that I die cut out of the Rainforest cardstock. And you're going to be able to see the piercing lines where those large pieces go. And the leaves go all the way to the end of the cardstock. They're going to fit perfectly in that little place. And after a while, once you start layering your pieces in, if you kind of lose track of where things are supposed to go, definitely refer to the packaging. It gives you a great idea of where everything is to be placed. You can mix and match and create your own design, or you can refer to the Concord and Ninth website. A few things I added there were the berry stems and also a flower stem that was die cut from the Grasshopper cardstock. The berries I die cut out of the new Wildberry cardstock. So there are two different ones that are kind of die cut together and they have a little etched line in them. It does matter which section they go in, but you'll be able to tell once you line it up and look at the etched line. And then there's the single berries that you can add on the top in their specific place. Then we have some leaves that I also die cut out of that Grasshopper cardstock. I'm kind of using the pierced lines. I still see them poking out behind the big leaves, so I know where those go. And I'm also referring to an image that Concord and Ninth provided so that I can line these up correctly for you. There's two groupings of flowers. There's a larger one and a smaller one that I did from watermelon cardstock. Then there's this flower. Now there's one die that I did 3 times out of Creamsicle cardstock. You could see that starting to kind of build up our layers in the back and also starting to hide our stems from our leaves. We also have a centerpiece for those 3 flowers that I die cut from the Creamsicle cardstock. I just did it in the same color cardstock, but you can have some fun mixing and matching your colors. Now we have these beautiful blooms. So for the die, there is one die for this large flower. I die cut it twice out of white cardstock. And then we have kind of this side view of a bloom. So there is going to be a backer piece and then a front piece that layers over the top. You can have some fun and die cut the back piece from a darker shaded cardstock and the front piece from a lighter shade if you want to mix it up a little bit. And then we had the stamen that I just tucked in between. Now for the flower, the larger one, I die cut twice and I just shifted it. So it's going to create this beautiful full bloom. And then my yellow centerpiece and the banner that I did from wheat cardstock. So with your banner, you can really customize how you want this to look on the front of your card. All of those sentiments on the stamp set fit on this banner. And with the flags, you can put them up, put them down, put one up, one down. Maybe you want your banner coming in from the side, so you could leave one off. Just really depends how you want it to look. So really customizable. Now, because of the size of this die, you can create a shape card. So I have a piece of white cardstock here that's cut to 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored it at 4.25. So I like to create side folding card bases, but this is something that can also be done with a top folding card base. So I reinforce my fold with my bone folder. Now there are 2 large dies to this. You have your outline die and you have your piercing plate die. So I want the outline die to create my shape card. I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to place it so you have your sharp side or your cutting edge facing down just like you would with your die cuts. And I'm going to line it up over my panel. Now I have my cardstock folded in half right now, and I'm going to look at that left edge and I want that to hang off of the edge, off of my fold. See, there's my fold. I have it tucked in, so it's my side folding card base, and I want that hanging off the edge so that we can have that right side be a shape. When you're doing this, you can hold that down with a low tack tape, but you want to make sure you have folds. So you can kind of tuck it in a little bit, but you just want to make sure that your fold is kind of in a little bit and your die is hanging off of the edge. That way, when you run it through your die cut machine, it is going to be connected and it's going to open up. We'll be able to place our panel on top, so you're not going to see it like this, but we'll place our panel over the top in a moment. And I do have some little center areas there that are die cut out. Just depending how you line up your die, you may not want those kind of open areas there. So it just depends on how you line it up over your fold edge. Now, none of this is glued down. I'm trying to gently pick this up to show you how this is going to line up over the front of your card. And that is going to give you a complete panel, but it's actually a shape card. I think it's a really nice, unique surprise for the recipient. Now here is my completed shape card that I did. I actually did my base panel out of wheat cardstock, so it's got that craft look to it. Lots of new colors in here, including Rainforest for the berries, which I thought was super pretty. And it's just a really fun design that you can do. You can just lay that panel over the front of an A2 size card base, or you can trim it out to make it a shape card, and it will fit inside of an A2 size envelope nicely. The next card I created was using just the elements of the set, so I didn't use that base panel with the piercing on it. I just used the flowers and some of the leaves and berries, added strips of cardstock in there, and a sentiment which came from the Parcel of Petals stamp set. Now this one's a little hard to see, but I just used the backer over some pattern paper. It's got the piercing in it. I'll try and get a closer look at that for you, but it's going to be just the piercing, so it's giving a subtle look to the background out of the white cardstock. So this one has a card front created from the 2024 Color Collection paper pad, and the sentiment is using the Altogether alphabet out of that pattern paper. And then this card is just using the flower that I used with the Empire Inlay Die set. So it's a really good focal point for my design. This die set I feel is a real showstopper and has a lot of possibilities to it. That's a closer look at the Primrose Garden bundle. You can find more inspiration over on the Concord and Ninth website.